Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back. Hey, Sean. You are first. Congratulations. Um, Messed with my mic a little bit. Hopefully, it's better today. I checked the sound. You can still hear my heating blowing into the mic. Can't fix that. Sorry, it's cold. I'm not turning off the heat. It's a good night here. Good. So, what are we working on today? Well, let's cover what we worked on yesterday. So we got some more of the immediate drawing done. And then off stream, later in the evening, I got to work on it some more. And I fixed the sphere declaration. So I went to Songho's Opengl site, which it's a great site, good resource. Guy definitely knows what he's doing. So go there and look at this if you want to learn some OpenGL stuff. So I took his sphere implementation, modified it quite a bit to fit mine, made some inline defines so that you could do various things. But it's a lot simpler than it was, and it generates the UV coordinates correctly. So did that, added a Bezier declaration as well. This declaration was straight from Raylib's implementation, by the way. Which I should do that. Happy New Year. Well, Happy New Year's Eve. Unless where you are, it's now that it makes sense. It wouldn't be. Not yet, right? Can't be that far ahead. Let's see. Modified from Raylib's implementation. There we go. And then I did a utility for doing a quick render pass and submit for the immediate draw, so you don't necessarily have to wrap this between a begin and end render pass. If you just wanted to do the immediate draw, you can do that. Okay. So I have this test main function that I've been throwing stuff in just to test out some of this functionality. If I pull that up, okay. So this is where we were yesterday. There's a couple things here that are different. Notably, textures are working. So up here, I'm generating a checkered texture. Right, so you have two different colors that you want to checker it with. Right here I have a white color and then this kind of, I don't know, navy blue-esque color. You have row and column dimension is going to be 10. So over here, just set that to a 10 by 10 and then iterate through the rows and columns. And then what you do for the checker is you check to see if the rows are even or the columns are even. Here's the actual index for the pixel that you're setting. So that's going to be the current row times all the columns. So the column dimension, and then you add an offset of the column. And then to do a checker, you can do this fun little ternary. So you can check to see if row and column are even. If they are, then you're going to set it to the first color. If they're not, then you just check to see if the row's even. If it is, you set it to the second color. If not, then you check to see if the column's even. If that is, then you set it to the first color. Otherwise, you're going to set it, or the second color. Otherwise, you're going to set it to the first color. Looks kind of crazy, but all it gives you is this checkered texture. And again, this could be, could make it, you know, a larger texture. So now we have 20 by 20. So what's working now is all the primitives that are declared, right? So any spheres, circles, triangles, rectangles, boxes, they all have UV mapping to them. So if I hold down P, you'll see the sphere with correct UV mapping. So you can apply textures to it. And it's just a UV map, so it's not a spherical map necessarily, it's just a UV map. It's like a cylindrical UV map. So that's where we are with the immediate mode. It's working pretty much the way that I want it to. And setting textures is fairly simple. There's a GSI texture declaration you can do. So right here. And what it does is it binds texture to the cache. And then for any of the other calls that you do after the fact, it'll apply that texture to them. And then you can, to disable it or reset the texture, just pass it in a null handle to a texture. And you're good to go. Okay, so that's yesterday. That's everyone caught up. Today, I've made a new main function, and let me go ahead and put the new main in. Show you what that's doing. So right now it's just a Bezier curve that's going from 0, 0, so the bottom left of the screen, to where the mouse is. I think it's offset a little bit, so that's actually at the tip of the mouse. Otherwise it'd be like in the center of the mouse, which kind of feels weird. Just to show Bezier's working. But that's what not what we're focusing on today. What we are focusing on, let me close this guy, is this. So we're going to start working on an asset utility. So it's basically an asset manager. Again, it's going to be an optional asset utility that you don't necessarily have to use with Gunslinger. You can write your own if you want. But if you would like to use something that I provide, feel free to do so. I've written several asset managers in the past. I think I'm fairly good at it now. So, not to toot my own horn, but yeah, so I'm gonna start working on this. I'm kind of deciding on what all I want to provide, how I want to set it up. What I've done in the past is, for raw resources, you have something like an importer. And the importer could either hold, really the importer is registered with file name extensions, right? So if you pass in a file name with like a .png or .jpeg, then that'll probably go to, or will go to, like a texture asset importer. If you have something that's a .obj, then you get a model importer or a mesh importer. It's probably the better way to put that. See, Patrick asks, what is Gunslinger? Gunslinger is my C99 header-only framework that I'm working on. So it has full implementations for dynamic containers, has its own math library, has its own platform layer, so it handles window creation and GPU context creation, has its own graphics layer, multi-threaded if you want to use it that way. And it's an explicit framework, it's not implicit, so it maps to OpenGL, Vulkan, DirectX, things like that. And it has its own audio layer as well. So this is the core. And then what I'm doing now is writing util libraries. The last one that I wrote was this immediate draw library, where you could do immediate rendering on top of everything for like debug stuff. And now I'm working on assets. So for asset importing, and again, optional, use it if you want to. Sounds like SFML or SDL2. Kind of. not really. Bloop. Hello, Dima. Okay. So, yeah, the importer could be something like this. PNG, JPEG. We can make specific importers for this. And then the importer holds asset records. An asset record being something that holds an actual asset. So asset data, it holds a status for the asset. It'll hold... what else have I done in the past? I'll hold a reference to the importer. It's all good, Patrick. It handles a lot of the stuff like STL or SFML does, but those are platform layers only. This is more on the line of if you're familiar with something like Sokal. So let's look at Sokal because it's a great library. Sounds like you're trying to achieve something by, well, like SDL, by hiding low-level stuff. In a way, but so again, at what all SDL is doing, it has some rendering stuff, but not much. The rendering it stuff it does is not great, and it has limited audio. What SDL does well is being just a general platform layer, right? However, if you wanted to do an actual graphics layer, you need to write that yourself. So what Sokal does, and what I like, is that, again, it's a header-only library. And it has a backend for, like a backend utility for an explicit graphics library. It has one for app. So for, like, if you did like a platform layer, it has that. It has audio as well. The only thing I don't like about this is that some of the declarations that it does for its graphics actually maps more to an implicit library, even though it says that it's explicit. There are certain things where I think he's going to have trouble in the future if he tries to go to something like Vulkan. He's going to run into issues. So what I'm doing with Gunslinger is something in this same vein. However, making it easier to be able to map to those in the future, and also providing more game-specific utility stuff. So an entity component system utility, an asset system utility, stuff like that. Ethan asks, what asset stuff are we doing? Well, I more or less finished what I needed to with the immediate mode stuff yesterday. So what I need to work on now, I ran into what I knew I was going to run into, which is I need font rendering. So I need a way to be able to load fonts. However, I don't want that to be a responsibility of the immediate mode utility. I want that to be the responsibility of something what I've wanted for a while now, which is an actual asset manager utility. So I'm going to write something like that. Header only, so implementation of functions are also written in the headers, correct? Yeah. Yes, and then defining the implementation. If you've used header-only libraries before, it's fairly simple, just where you include in one of your C files or C++ files, define the implementation, and then that'll implement it there. Okay. What I'm thinking maybe in the future is adding something like this in the config where you can have like an all util, that way you don't have to do all of this. You just, sounds good, no noise so far. Yeah, I turned down the gain on the mic. I think that was the issue. But when my heat comes on, you'll hear some noise. So, never heard of header-only library, really. Oh, check out the STB libraries. So those are probably the most popular header-only library. I'll put that there. So great utilities for a lot of stuff. I actually use a few things in Gunslinger from STB. Specific or explicitly, well, let's see. TrueType. I use this font library in here. What else? The image library. So there's STB image somewhere in here. Yeah. So there's image.h. It's good for loading like PNGs and JPEGs and all that stuff. New to programming. I just studied the third semester. Awesome, man. Well, welcome. Third semester. What was third semester? So what are you in? Cal 2? That was fun. Cal 2. It's all good, man. In the Discord channel I have, which there's a link in the description if you're interested, we have people from all types of experience. So I've been in industry for about a decade and was programming quite a bit before then. But we have people that are in school. Ethan's in high school. All types. So do not worry about being new. Everyone's new at something. Okay. So I'm trying to decide how I want to structure this. This might be a boring stream. I apologize. It might be like the first immediate mode stream where I was sitting there sketching kind of how I want the stuff to work. It might be that. So there won't be pretty pictures, unfortunately. But you get to, again, see how I come up with an implementation idea, if that interests you. So I thought about doing something like this, maybe getting rid of the importer and instead holding, so in the asset manager itself, holding, let's see, what would we need to hold? Like, it could be a hash table that goes from a U64 to like this. And then when you want to make your own asset, all you have to do let's say this is the base. You know, whatever needs to be in here. It can be empty for all I care. What you do is if you want to derive something in C, then you would need to just include this as your base parameter at the top. Right, and then whatever properties you want after the fact to be your actual data. So again, this could be an empty, well, it has to have something. It can't be empty. So, you know, it could be something like this for, you know, for all I care. But most likely it'll be something like this, which will have a UUID to it. maybe something like that. Then you include this as your base. And then you redefine this. I could do something like this. And the reason it works like this is because of the way structs work is that they're aliased by their first type. So the compiler will look at that and it'll know how to cast it. So if you wanted to have like some function that says void do stuff, I don't know. And you want to do something with this asset, maybe like look at its UUID or something like that. You could have an instance of your asset and then pass that up to do stuff just by casting it. And it will cast this correctly. So that's how you do polymorphism in C. Now when you start talking about virtual tables and all that stuff, you could hold a vtable, make a vtable declaration, hold that, and then whenever you create your own version of the asset, you would just set its vtable to whatever you want. That's possible. I don't really like doing that. There's a couple of issues with this without using some sort of metaprogramming. First one being that is if I do something like this and I don't know, I have some function pointer right here. This is a pointer, okay? And if the user just wants to do something like this, like what I just did down here, just do an empty declaration and then try to start using it, dot func, that's a crash, right? Because it's not set. But I like the ability to be able to zero initialize anything and have it work, not have to worry about necessarily initializing it if you don't need to. There are some instances where that's not the case, so like command buffers really can't be done that way. The GSI can't be done that way. So I mean, maybe that's something that I keep in mind. But I don't know what direction I'm going to take. But this would work. It would actually have to be that. Well, it could be that. So, because this is just a type def declaration, and then whenever you're going to get it, so let's say like this is our font. Something like that. Just return you back a generic handle to an asset. That's a font. Only downside to this is the benefit of having these handles be type safe is good. So I don't know. What this would be is a it'd be something like this. So maybe this should be like this. And then you would have to define, if you wanted to make your own, define your own asset declaration like this. And then you would actually load the file from here. So that could be the direction I go. It's not that bad. Somewhat generic, yet it has the type safety that I like, because it has to return a specific type, specific handle type. This will go to a specific function to load a specific thing. So what I did in Injon was the asset importer actually registered, or the asset manager registered importers based on extension type. And then you could call, it was an asset manager, add to database, or load resource from file, something like that. And you would just give it a path. And that path looked at the file extension, and it mapped that file extension to a hash map of importers, right? So if you had, what I did down here, yeah, so if you had, .png or .jpeg or something like that, then it looked for a particular importer type. If it didn't have that importer, it returned an error back to you. That could also be something that I do. So you could have a hash table of U64. So again, this U64 would be, it's a hash string, and it's GS hash string 64, and then whatever the file extension is. So do that to just an asset importer pointer. And then the asset importer itself would hold all the data. So that means that this is what actually has to get created. So we'd have an asset importer, and it would have functions for loading stuff. So load from file. I don't know, whatever else. It would hold, well, it would hold internal data, however it needs to. What does this return though? Because this has to return something. Just a generic asset handle. Could do that. And then when you do GS, so type and then name, looks for importer based on type. Yeah, I don't know. This could return a pointer. If you do this, it gives you a raw pointer to that data. So it's not going to be safe. It won't give you an asset handle. which I would like. Like return an asset handle, but that isn't, it's not really useful to you. So like if you wanted to get like a font, right? So the way a lot of this in my head, but the way I'm envisioning this is like, say we have the immediate mode rendering, right? And we want to do GSI text. And you know, that's going to take text. Well, let's say you give it like a X, a Y, so some X and Y position on the screen. Give it text to render, and then you want to give it a font. So is this going to be handled to font data, or is it that? Does this even need to know about font? Probably. But it's kind of weird mixing these concepts together. It's the one thing I dislike about this so far is I'm not exactly sure where the responsibility lies, and I'm not sure how to define this. If it should be So what you can do with the type is you can actually hash this out. So do a 64-bit hash. Not necessarily give you a unique ID, but what it will do is the hash table will use that in order to find a key for the importer. So that does work. And if it comes with any collisions, it's fine. It'll resolve those collisions. So this does work. I'm just not sure what it should give here. Should this return this? Because I can force this. Because it would be what would this macro be? It would have to look for, let's see, look for the importer for this. So you need to pass in the asset manager. Let's just say it's, yeah. Hey, Vefo. Happy New Year to you. Thank you. I wish you the same. So the asset manager could, let's see. So we have, let's say we have importers, just like an importer table. So we want to do gs hash table get the importer table, and we want to hash the type. So we get that, and then from here I would like a way How would this work? So we'd hash that. That would give us the importer. And then from the importer, you would need a particular name to give you back a handle. Well, maybe not necessarily. I mean, let's just assume there's a hash table to, Jesus. So this is a really this is a slot map at this point. Could do something like that. So this maps to an index, void pointer asset data. So this is a table of all of your asset data, which this could be no, I don't want that. I'd actually want I mean, I could do like yeah, it's not necessary. Well, it is. It is absolutely necessary. No, I don't want to do that. Huh. Okay, I don't want to store pointers that I have to malloc. That's the thing. I'd like some way to be able to uniquely qualify a name. So let's say you have some texture that says, or some font or whatever, and its directory is in assets fonts font.ttf. Okay, I'd like some way to be able to uniquely identify this as assets.fonts.font. Would be nice. Or if there's some way, like I've done in the past, is you set a root directory for the assets directory, and then it looks in that root directory for like a relative path. So you could do something like this. So just fonts.font. Could do that. Because I would like to not have to do this. And instead, you define certain functions that have to be done, because that's going to be compile time type safe, or it's statically checked, I guess, if you want to say that. Right, so if you want to call asset manager get or asset manager load from file with a particular type, it's going to go in and try to call something like this, and if you don't have it defined, you're going to get a linker error, which would force the user to have to do that. And it could be type safe, because you could do something like this, because it would load it like that. Yeah. The only thing is that I need to think about the data. I mean, I could do an asset importer declaration. And then give it a font or a type. So what this will do, and then what it has is a slot map that goes from some name to that, so this could be names. It could also have the actual data being in here. Not that, just that. And part of me doesn't like this because I don't like having to define these decals like this. But it might be what it, you know, it is what it is, basically. One of the downsides to this is that if you don't have this handle declared, then it won't work either. But it would make it easy because you'd be able to do stuff like this. You would actually define these functions. So gs handle to t. Well, though, this actually doesn't work because this has to be defined how you want it to be. So maybe not. Maybe not necessarily this way. I still could do this. Like some way to be able to do so. This is terrible name. Make this generic. We have to do something with a void pointer here. Either that or U8, and then just hold a size for the data size. But then that means that you would have to do, you couldn't do this. You wouldn't be able to do that. I guess it's fine. So it'd be something like this: generic byte buffer, basically. Honestly, I'd rather just do this. What's the issue with doing this? Well, whenever this data moves, it's fine. Whenever you delete elements, it has to change. Which is not ideal. What would be nice? I need to have this. I mean, it's either, Jesus Christ, it's either that or no. I'd like to have this work. I'd like to make this work. I think I can make it work. So if I just had a dynamic array that had indirection, so this slot map will map to an index in here, which gives you an indirection array. This void pointer is the actual data, so that would just be a dynamic array. This is the actual data size. Oh, would that work? Yes. Is it gross? Yes. Not 100% sure. If I was able to figure this out, though, this could be totally generic. And then what you would do is in the asset manager, register importer. And what it could do is you would register the importer with a particular type. So asset manager and a type. I don't need these for now. Fuck it. So what would that do? it would create an asset importer. Then let's call it AI. AI dot. So that nulls everything out. That works. Then the data size. No. It's just the size of this. And let's see, what else? You would just push back that particular type to have a particular importer. So you hash the type string. So uint64t. Just call it hash, whatever, is gs hash string 64 gs to string t. So that gives me a hash, and then gs hash table insert am the importers. That hash, and you would insert that importer. Okie dokie. And that would work. So you could do that. Now what about loading an asset? So let's say we have a font importer. So let's say we've done this and we want to create assets, gs font t. We have an asset. It has whatever it has. Create an asset manager. We register an importer with it. And then we want to load something. So how do we do this? So we have a handle to a font. We want any other arguments that you might need for whatever you're doing. It would be this. What does that look like? Well, like we had down there, type, path, and then you would just call this. I just need the path. That would be that. Then you would be responsible for defining any other arguments. You don't really need them. And then load it. Now, this isn't necessarily true because you need to pass back an importer as well. So it needs the importer, the path, and then the arguments. And one thing I dislike about this is that it kind of requires you to handle certain things yourself in a weird way that isn't intuitive and is very error prone. It's not good. All right, because if you load, let's say you create TF equals, load data into font however you want. So I need to have something that's like GS asset needs to be something like that. Return this. I think I could do. So well, no, that wouldn't be possible. Well, let's see. Actually, I like calling this assets instead. Simpler. Now it has to return a handle. Fuck. Let's just say it's something like that for now. It's kind of gross, but I could figure out a way to make it smaller. So I have this macro to load this into the importer. For now, we'll just make it a do while. So what does it need to do? You have the type, you have the importer, so you know that you're going to create, well, we have the handle too. Actually, we have the handle, we don't need the type, just handle. Right? Well, maybe. Because all I need to do is handle.id is, setting it into whatever the slot ID for the importer is going to be. So how does this work? Well, we're going to have to manage this data ourselves, which is basically a slot array implementation, which blows hard. because I'd rather not have to rewrite the damn slot array implementation for this. It'd be nice to be able to use it. I won't be able to make it work with a void pointer, which sucks. Sucks. All right, let me get some more coffee. Be right back. Okie dokie. Actually, this could just return the data. And then when you load from file, oh, that's going to return the actual. Well, it could do load into. Importer, load from file, T, importer, path, args. What's the data? Oh, it has to do this. Do that. So we're going to fill this out, cache the importer, cache the data, load into the importer, and then return the handle. That's a gnarly macro. I love it. COM operator, by the way, if you're not familiar with that, it's a lifesaver. Not even sure if that'll work, but we're going to make it work. We're going to. Okay, so let's assume this works. Good chance it doesn't, but let's assume it does. We can just require the user to do this. We don't have to have them do this, which is cool. You just have to return me the asset. Just do that for me. Just make the asset and return it. Do I even need your importer? I don't even need your importer. Load from file. Path, arguments. I don't need the importer from you. I do need it for here. So okay, should be able to do that. Load into importer T, what is it? I need data though. So the importer, the data, so the data is this. I don't think that'll work. That's gonna complain about right-hand value stuff. It's okay though. But let's say we can get rid of that, and now we just have a single comma operator where we redefine the handle that we're gonna fill out, and we're gonna pass in the handle. And then we could just return the handle, honestly. There, and that's what the user gets. Isn't that fun? Yeah, because that should be that. Yeah, and then there's that, which closes that out. Okay, I think that'll work. Probably not. Okay, so what are we doing now? We've taken away the requirement that the user has to do anything with the importer. Just load the thing from file. That's all I care about. You just have to declare this. How do you actually load the data into memory, into your structure, and then I'll handle the rest because I'm that nice of a guy. So what do we do for this? Assets load data into importer. Okay, into that handle. So shit. Well, I mean, the slot array is, I probably could do this. Void pointer, slot array. I need the data side, do I? So that's null. We'll treat it as a slot array. So the importer slot array, we'll just cast it to that, and then GS, so ID is the slot array insert. So insert into the slot array, data. Okie dokies, and then the handle's ID. Actually, this is a pointer. Is the ID. How about that? That should work. Wow. One last thing Oh, we want to map the name. Shit. Happy New Year. Let's see. Jay Javinsky? Janevsky. Call you JJ. It's my initials too. Happy New Year, guys. Here's to 2021 being better. I don't plan on it. Cool, man. I appreciate it. I'm glad there's a market for people that want pure C games and graphics programming. I'm glad there is, because there's certainly not enough people that do it. Which is a shame, because C is the best language. I think this will work. I still need to do this. So this will map down to this. So let's figure that out real quick. I mean, I could just load this into the path. Oh, I did this incorrectly. Shit. Because this is loading into the importer. Oh, okay. It's just one. That's right. It's just one file call. Because this is the importer. Let's say that we're going to pass the path up as well. Or a name. No. Register importer. Load into importer. T importer name. Somehow we're going to pass a name up. So we have the ID for the handle. And now what we want to do is inside of the importer, we're going to insert the ID. So we need the importer, I cannot spell that word, name map, which that's going to change. That's a terrible name. Inside the name map for the importer, are you using ANSI and pedantic flags? No, not at all. No. There are a couple of things with the way that I'm handling the data that the compiler absolutely hates. It compiles fine, it works fine. It's just going around from anonymous structure types so that I could do generic hash tables. It complains to no end if you try to pass that into a function. So if I look at the hash table, it's this generic structure of a hash table entry. And that's so that you could do a generic key, generic value, and then give it a state. The only bad thing about that is if I try to define some hash table, let's say U32 to U32, and then I want to make a function, do something, you know, I guess that's why they do foo, because you can never name these functions. So if I try to do something like this, and then I try to pass this table up, I could just do this. No, I need to do that. Try to pass the table up. This compiler throws up with warnings. And that's because it's trying to take an anonymous structure of this type or just trying to take an anonymous structure of this type and convert it to one that uses this type, right? They're non-named. That's the only shitty thing about it. There's no real way around that. So, unfortunately, at least not that I know of. Maybe if you guys know a way around that, I'd appreciate it so I can get rid of that warning. Are you using ISO C, C90, C99? C99, although very few features from C99. Really the only one that I use is, otherwise I just use straight C89, but I use C99 simply for the reason that if I'm doing a for loop, I like the ability to initialize and declare inside of the loop. It just makes things smaller. Whereas in C89, you had to do your initialization declaration outside of it, right? I just don't like that. So that's really it, I think. Inside of the interface and implementation for this, since it's all header only, I don't do things like your struct dot data equals something like this. I won't do that because that will throw up compiler errors if you're trying to compile C89, if you're trying to compile C++. So I try to write it. ANSI doesn't support non-structs. You don't have a choice on that. Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, it compiles, it runs fine. It's just going to give compiler warnings about that, which sucks. But it'll alias the data correctly. So. And I feel a little bit better about it because that's what Sean Barrett does. And if it's good enough for Sean Barrett, it's good enough for me. In his own, let's see, yeah, this. So he has his own, this is where I got the hash table implementation idea from. So let's find hash table. He has it in here somewhere, but he has the same idea. It's just a anonymous declaration, so that he's able to do stuff like, where is it? Where you at, bro? Yeah, stuff like this. So he makes anonymous declarations for his maps. Right. So this is a hash map. And he even has something up here talking about unnamed structures being an issue with C++, or at least VC6. Which sucks, but it is what it is. Okay, so oh, it's registering the importer. What am I doing? Should be down here. No, what am I doing? Leave that alone, right? Yeah, okay. I got distracted. So we should be able to, if you want to load into the importer, which we'll do, which I'll probably make these like this, register importer. Yeah, it's really cool. Check it out. He also has a dynamic array in there as well, which I've ripped from as well and made my own implementation using that idea. And then I took it further and I made a slot array, which is, so I've covered it before, but it's just a way to have a dynamic array, but you have opaque handles in case the array moves or you delete elements from it or you grow the array. You can maintain constant references to the data that you want, which is great for asset systems. And then a slot map. So a slot array and a slot map. And the slot map just takes it one step further, which is you can use a hash table on top of that for some generic type, and then use that to get your index. So it's 2 levels of indirection instead of 1. And so what I'm using for this asset system is a slot array in order to put your data in. Thoughts on Vulkan? Why aren't you using it instead of GL? I am more comfortable with GL, so typically when I write a renderer, I start with that. However, the renderer that I've written is not GL specific. It is, let me go to gs.h. Yeah, I mean it, duh. It is an explicit renderer. So it maps down to, depending on the implementation, it maps down to whatever renderer you have, but it's written as if it's an explicit renderer, so it'll easily map to Vulkan and DX12. So if you're familiar with Vulkan, you know, a lot of this stuff should look similar, like shaders, textures, buffers, pipelines, render passes, stuff like that. And then in the actual graphics implementation, if you have the OpenGL implementation defined, then it goes through, and this is the actual OpenGL backend that gets defined as your graphics backend. And there's a lot in here. Yeah. I also use my own command buffer system. The reason for that is multi-threaded rendering, should you want to use it. If not, then it just buffers commands and it does it all on the main thread. Okay. I think this is it. Honestly, we could just do this. Well, we could just do that. Slot map of data. Could be that. I still probably want to keep this. Yeah, data size of T. Actually, so I could do name to the, man, I'm getting kind of funky here. But if I do a void pointer to a slot map, then what I could do is I could initialize this slot map. Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, it's an explicit pipeline, so you get what you get with it, right? Ultimate control, but that means that the granularity is as granular as it can get. What do you mean by that? Janevsky, you said zero benefit for pixel-based graphics. What do you mean by that? And what do you mean by pixel-based graphics? So we could create like a default. So if you register an importer, create an empty thing. So let me look at my slot map. I don't know if that'll work. I don't know if I need this either. All right, let's start writing some of this. I don't want to do this decal. I don't like that. I like this. Slot map, slot array. Okay. Files for the type, the path, anything else? So load an importer, type, path, args, handle, string type. Including the assets here. Come on. Nope. That's surprising. Get rid of you, get rid of you, get rid of you. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if it was something you, I wasn't sure or didn't know about. I've been doing this a while, but I mean, there's always something to learn. So if someone says something that I don't know what it is, I'm like, okay, well, maybe that guy knows something I don't. Because there's a good chance you do. I'm kind of retarded. You wouldn't be person. Oh yeah. You could be. You know, you try to do 1,000,000 quads on screen. It's 4,000,000 verts. You know, you try to push that. Draw calls, you could be in trouble. So. Okay. I need the asset manager declarations. So what did I say? The asset manager is going to be just a series of importers. That's it. That's all it needs to be. So U64 to it could actually just be this. So this maps hashed types to importer. All right, so if we make one, let's just make a let's say we can just do this. Load from file. So just font T font. Let's see, register importer, assets, register importer, AM. Let's say this has to be a pointer. Or maybe not. Okay, data size not a member of importer T. You're right. GS hash string 64. Okay. Oh. Yeah, you heard a cat. Cat is meowing because it's raining. Okay. Let's actually load up an asset. Assets load into importer. So that gives me the importer. I need a name. So name, just for now. So this is what will happen. So let's say we want to make a font. Okay. A couple things with this. Let's say that we have a like font.ttf. Say that's there, okay? A couple things this is going to complain about. So we don't have a declaration for a font. So it's just going to continue complaining about that. So we'll need to do okay, so I think it's complaining about this now. I'm sitting there doing that. Just handle asset. Oh, right, that's right, because I need to pass in the assets. Okay, from file, T importer AM, T path. So I do need the type. For now, I think what we could do in the future is just do this and then just look at the file extension. It's complaining about this, because sometimes it's just really fucky. Okay, it doesn't like that. And T, so that's T. Just handle T. P. I don't think I need to do that. Still complaining. Shit. Why? Why are you complaining? All right, sounds good, man. Thanks for dropping in. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I should be able to do this. No, you're still gonna complain about that. Handles undeclared. What are you talking about, dude? What are you talking about? Be fine. So, okay. What do I need to do? There's a default handle declaration I have. Yeah, handle create. Handle invalid. Unreal. This should work. Why isn't this working? What the hell? Like, look at this. I'm able to do an initialization function. I'm able to assign a temporary value. I mean, maybe it's because that's probably it. So you can't declare a new value. I can assign a new value, but I can't declare a new value. So what's the way around this? If the importer holds on to a temporary ID, and then I do GS handle create T and then the ID, which is that. So that's the ultimate return. Of course not. Importer's left operand has a struct type, use that. And that's not true. I'm getting the pointer. Table get index that returns that. I want the address of that. Oh, it's saying that this is a I want these both to be pointers. No, it does not. Absolutely does not. Am I ready for 2021? That depends on what you mean. Boy, what am I missing here? Why is this not? Should get the address of this get. This get returns this. Returns this. So get I. do this. If you want me to do this, I'll do it. That's what you wanted? Oh, okay. Piece of shit. Okay, so this is our final create. What do we need to do in the meantime? I need to store. Okay, so I have to load into importer. Boy. Load from file. This should be the equivalent of doing this. Okay, it's not. Fantastic. Oh, I've got the two here. Should give me, yeah, an unresolved symbol, because that's not defined. So now, what you should have to do in order to create this and then nothing else. Load this however you want, I don't care. What did I have up here for the font declaration? Put something in there. Oh, it's just data. And let's just make it 100 for now, and we'll return the font. Okay. So now it should find this. Yep, just fine. So now we need to load into the importer all this stuff. Load into importer, and it takes the type, the importer, which let's just do this. table get pointer. So I need the importer, the name, the data. So the importer is, again, it's a pointer to that. The name, we'll just call name, data, and handle. Then we'll do a handle. Instead, we'll do importer. This is a do while. Fuck, this isn't gonna work. Shit. Well, this is not gonna work. You can't have do whiles in here. I'm gonna have to make this a function somehow. Ooh, I don't know if this is possible now. Fun. I need to make this a function. The only problem is that I'm gonna have to because what is all this doing? So instead of doing this, I could do oh, I have to make the fucking importer as well. Jesus. Yeah, I'm gonna need to do that. So gs slot array t pointer convert that to a slot array of that type. You know what? I'm doing this so many times, I'm just going to cache this. I have to. Why macros, not just functions? Because I need them to be, they can't be typed. Or they have to be typed, that's why. Right, I need to know in order to alias this slot array correctly, I need to know the type that it's aliasing. Or it doesn't work correctly. That's why. So that I can do stuff like this. Generic load from file function, pass in the assets, pass in the type, and then pass in the file. Eventually what we can do is get rid of this and actually get the extension from this, and then it'll know how to map to an importer. So I have an idea for doing that, and I think I'll go that direction. That way you don't have to explicitly set this, as long as the file extension is registered correctly. So we could do like, and then we could have a file extension map. Something like this. Or we just do this. So we could register an importer like that, and then the importer or the asset system would hold a mapping from these file extensions to a particular importer. And then you could get rid of this. You don't need this anymore because it would know how to map. But that's not possible if you have functions. They need to be typed. Which actually we could create like a, this is probably something I'll do actually. So asset importer descriptor, because I like descriptors. And then we could say maybe not, because this has to be done on the, because you can't just do a type. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe we'll just have file extension. Okay. Anyway, so back to this. We're trying to get rid of this. I'm going to hold on to an asset importer. Reason being that I'm caching this a lot, and I don't want to do that. So am temp importer is okay, so we grab that. Okay, let's think about the thing we're doing here. So we grab the temp importer. We load into importer, and then we create a handle. Which that should be our load from file function. Okay. If this works, I think this will work out well. I think it will. So we're gonna cache the importer, because we're gonna need to cache that. And then loading into the importer. So we have T, we already have the importer here. The name, load from file. But again, this is a do while, so we can't do this. So what we're going to do instead is do the slot array so GS slot array insert. This is not going to take this, it's going to just take an importer. So insert into the slot array, GSA, IMSA, the temporary importer, and the type. And what do we want to insert? The data. Which is this. What does slot array insert do though? That returns, I don't know if that's possible. Let's see if that's possible. I don't even know if that's possible. Oh, let's get rid of this. $79. Yep, that insert's going to complain. It's probably this. Let's see. Figure out a way around this. Okay. This slot array insert is probably not going to work the way I want it to, which blows because of this. Well, that should be fine. That should be fine. That should be fine. Just returns. So maybe I could define like a no return. Thing is, even if it returns something, it shouldn't matter. shouldn't matter. This should be fine. I think the problem is that it's trying to call this, and then assign like this to it, which is not going to work. So when you do slot array insert, slot array in all, so temp val equals val, which that, no, it should be fine. That should be fine. I mean, unless I could do GSA, IMSA, I'd have to knit. See if this is possible. Motherfucker. Oh, maybe it's because I'm casting into a pointer there. Maybe that's why. Slot array. Oh, but I'm an importer. Importer. No, you're still fucking complaining. All right. Start here. I know this works, right? No, that doesn't work. Why would that work? Of course, why would that work? Why would that work? What are you complaining about? 81. Let's see. You're not missing that. Why are you complaining about that? GS handle create. here. We pass in the type and the ID. You are still upset. Why? I don't understand this at all. That doesn't make sense in the slightest. Not in the damn slightest. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. Absolutely does not. It's saying that this is a fucking, it's not a pointer. Kiss my ass, yes it is. Importers left, operand points destruct, use. So there's something else going on, it's just being dumb. Yeah, so now it's complaining about that. Probably because I'm not wrapping it, which happens in macros. That is the problem, yes. Okay. Alright, so I know that's good. Next part. Okay. I need to pass this into the slot array. The importer is to be able to initialize this, so data, struct union, time. So what doesn't it all do? What's up? I'm wrestling with some macro stuff for now. That's what's up. Slot array init. Try to get this working. Or you could do a generic load from file in this macro. It's proving to be difficult. I don't know if I could just do this. Okay, that works. So I could do that. So I can init my slot array. I can initialize this. And then I can do this. Oh wait, that was not correct because I need the indices. Slot array t temp, slot array. Not work. Must point to a structure or union. It does. That does. So the slot array already is a pointer, so don't cast it to a pointer. I should be able to do this. And then I can pass on a handle. Okay, so this all works. So this is initializing this slot array if it's not already initialized for the importer. It looks kind of gross. But what I should be able to do is call this instead. Just like that. Maybe not. Yeah, so that works. Okay, holy Christ. So we've initialized the slot array. So that means that the memory is allocated correctly for it. We've stored our temporary importer. What else do we need to do? Now we need to actually load into the array. So slot array, and we need this, which I might manually do this. Because it's going to complain. Fucking of course it is. Let's see, slot array. So we've manually done this. So what we're going to do is manually store this val. And then we'll just pass up the temp val. No, we won't. I'm missing. This is. All right, I've got to fix this. I can't even read this. GSA, IMSA. Can I do this? Does this work? If I get rid of these and just do no, it's not cool with that. Of course it's not. That's because of this. This is not a pointer. All right, so that does work. Good. So that works. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Oh, it worked. Holy hell. All right, so now we've inserted it into the map or the array. I think when it inserts into the array, I do store a temp index. Let me see. No, I don't. Okay. So what I might do is inside of the importer, store a temp index just for now. But actually, that's what the temp ID is. So I've already thought of that. Okay, so store the temp ID, and now we can push that into the hash map. Oh, it's fun. So now we have to gs hash table insert the importer, which again is name map, and then the ID. Oh, the hash table insert is a do while. Oh. Yeah, it's a do while. Mother. Okay. I might have to rewrite that. We were so close. I'll be right back. Yeah, macros are crazy. But they're fun. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, what's the point of this? Is it to be able to, it's to be able to do something like this, but then is this useful in terms of what it returns? Or is it more useful to index it by assets get and then give it a name? Just index it by a name instead. Is that more useful? And this just gives you a direct pointer, which is unsafe. So just get pointer. Except Probably because I'm thinking like in the future, if I have a material that needs to hold a reference to a shader, ref to a pipeline. If you have a mesh that holds, there's mesh data. If you have a, is that even an asset? Say like a model? That's not. No, like a renderable is not a. It's not an asset. I don't know. Because even then, you have to do something like this. Even if I pass in a handle, I have to say get font, you know, what type it is, get font T handle, right? So is it really useful to pass back a handle? Is that actually useful? Do I give a shit? Or should it be, it's like not this, but just load from file, that loads it into the assets directory, and then when you want to get it later, like that. I don't know. What do you guys think, for those of you that are watching? I think this is more useful. But I could be wrong, but I think it is. Which means then I just hold, it's a hash table instead of assets. So an importer just holds a hash table and not a slot array. Shit. This is why you do better sketches, because now I'm at a standstill in the design implementation. should this be UIDs? I don't know. Okay, so I think when you load from file, should you be able to place, like, should you be able to give an ID or a name? I think I might just make a design decision on this one that I don't necessarily like. Because this requires you like all of your handles that you want to use, it requires you to manually keep up with it, which isn't terrible. It's not that big a deal. I mean, you have to do that with internal resources anyway, right? So if you do like any of this stuff, you have to keep up with these handles. The thing I like about handles is that they don't necessarily require you like you don't have to do any names, you don't have to do any of that stuff. So let's say we don't use a hash table for names. It's just a slot array. That's it. So there's no hash table insert. And then you return this handle. Oh, I've got all this shit up here. course, I could do a generic asset handle like that. Just declare I could actually make like an asset handle. So GS like that. And then the asset itself could have the type in it. And then you could do well, that might not work actually. But I don't like this because this has a lot of error that's possible with it. I'd prefer this. You pass in asset manager, you pass in the handle, and it returns to you the data in a smart way. Which I think I can do that. Because it would just grab the importer and then pass back the address of the slow. It needs to know the type, right? Yeah, we need to know the type. Shit. So that's not going to be possible. Okay. It's not possible. Unless, well, no, because the importer has, it's not the importer I care about. I don't care about that. It's it's knowing how to alias the slot array to a particular type so that I can grab data from it. That's the problem. Which, I mean, this is fine, I guess. Not terrible. Keyboard's acting up. Great.